From the Edge of the Web studios, here's what we're looking at this week.
And we are looking at it. Welcome back to the Site Strategics Digital Marketing Desk of Edge of the Web Radio. This is the bonus news, podcast, and video of Edge of the Web Radio, episode 361. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Joining me this week to take all the digital marketing news on is Mike King, Managing Director at iPullRank. Mike, how you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Doesn't look like you're fantastic. You got something burning in the background.
Hey, such is life, being in New York right now, and also being black in New York. So
there you go. Well, I mean, you're owning the friction right there. All right, man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep a straight face this entire thing, but you know what? You keep on rocking that. I appreciate it. Okay. Well, we certainly appreciate Mike coming back. It's been a hot minute. See, I'm gonna have these puns all through the show. It's gonna happen. Mike was with us in 2016 when he joined. He was with iPullRank for a couple of years, and we certainly recommend our listeners jump into the full interview that we had with Michael, because it was full of hot takes. There we go. See. How many dad jokes can we actually throw at this thing? All right.
You're really on fire today, Aaron.
Oh, there it is. All right. From The Verge, Spotify is testing interactive podcast ads so you'll never have to remember a promo code again, they promise. Spotify wants to ensure that you'll never forget a podcast advertiser's promo code. The company announced today that it's testing a new feature called in-app offers that gives podcasts the ability to keep an embedded link on their episode pages that, when tapped, leads to an advertiser's webpage. That webpage will automatically load the promo code inserted. This way, people don't have to remember podcast ad promo codes or go out of their way to find the advertiser's website. How about them apples? It's almost like the podcast industry is starting to mature.
I think that's awesome, because so many people are doing podcasts now, and so many people are like, how do I turn this into revenue? And unless they've got direct advertisers, it's kind of difficult. So I think that's awesome that we're getting that finally from some of these channels. And I suspect that we're going to see more of that as we go as well. Absolutely.
This technology is only available on the Spotify shows, and it actually could encourage advertisers to spend money on the company's programming over others. That's what you're going to find here is that it's not. I mean, we still have a raw download. It's really going to have to be the aggregators, the platforms themselves, and be able to provide us that level of insert ad technology there. And then what you're going to see is really a gravitation towards certain platforms beyond iTunes. iTunes has never been pushing ad environments here, and boy, that's a tough thing, because I mean, if all of a sudden we start moving towards platforms that give consumers the ability to interact, we're going to lose a lot of the audience on these older platforms that are just not even interested in the ad space. So that said, I think this is fantastic to be able to start working with advertisers and working with podcasts to give them a little bit more interactivity to the consumer. So we will pay attention to that. I don't think we've ever actually thrown out a promo code in this show. Over 9 years, we've never had a promo code.
Really?
It's darn time to start it, right?
Definitely.
All right, so we'll certainly figure out a promo code, because we're on Spotify. Hey, and if you're listening to us on Spotify, we will get a promo code to you. Right? We just call it iPullRank.
Works for me.
Yeah, I bet it does. All right. Also something that's working for Google is Apple Safari. They're saying that they will not block Google Analytics tracking. Apple's next version of Safari web browser. Who the heck would think that would be a good idea? Apple's next version of Safari web browser, available in the Mac OS Big Sur, will reportedly not block Google Analytics as was previously thought. Reports from several reputable developers indicate that Google Analytics will load and run on Safari 14 the same as it does on the current versions of the browser. That means that marketers will not be losing a whole segment of Google Analytics data from Safari users. Who in their right mind would develop a browser that would block Google Analytics?
Yeah, I mean, I actually wrote a blog post about this about a year ago,
Yeah.
where Apple is going in that direction with ITP and a number of other things, and all the browsers have been like jumping on this idea of no longer allowing third party cookies.
Right.
So this is gonna come. Like they are all starting to get on board with that, and I think it's really. And I wrote another article about this a couple months ago. That this is going to create data monopolies for these big companies.
Right.
Because the first party data that like Google, that Apple, that Amazon and so on have, you can't get that anywhere else. And they're still going to be able to effectively track you.
Right.
So of course you see companies like Google leaning into this because it creates another opportunity for them to really target the market. But yeah, I think even if Safari rolls it back for right now, this is definitely coming on the device level, on the browser level, and so on. And so people really got to focus on developing their own first party data now so that they're not flying blind in the future.
Do you think that we are actually going to start paying for our own consumers' data from these siloed entities? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
this is going to be the coin of the realm.
Yeah,
huh?
absolutely. And it may not be, directly paying for it with respect to like you have to buy analytics from
Right.
from Google. It's more that if you want to have any sort of understanding of your customer, you've got to buy ads
Right.
through these channels with these targeting vectors so that you know who you're actually capturing. Otherwise, this is going to be completely, you don't really know, just like with not provided in organic search
Right.
versus paid search.
So it's going to be it's going to be literally a hodgepodge of your connections to all these different data purveyors, so you can actually get a picture of your audience. And it's almost like you're trying to paint a picture. Oh, I don't have that particular API connection, so I can't see that sector of my audience. So you're going to have to constantly be vigilant, and you really won't know what you don't know because you'll be blind to it. So how in the world will you be able to even understand there's a holistic view of your users if it's going to be a patchwork of data?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, it's gonna become like, okay, I targeted in this channel for this campaign, this type of user.
Right.
That's one persona. I targeted another channel for this campaign for this type of user. That's another persona. And that's like your only measurement. Everything else is pretty opaque from there.
Are you saying that no longer are we going to have just user personas and then the latticing of the different services in the buyer's journey, but it's also going to be the latticing inside of each and every one of the different platform data silos. So it's going to be
Absolutely.
that user at that buyer's journey in Apple.
Absolutely.
Oh, come on. It couldn't get any worse, but I'm sure it will. All right. But what's not worse, that's really, really good, is utilizing Ahrefs. They're a continued sponsor for the Edge, and we certainly appreciate that, although they probably don't appreciate the terrible segue into that. Ahrefs makes competitive analysis very, very easy. Their tools show you how your competitors are getting traffic from Google and why. You can see the pages, the content that send them the most search traffic. You can also see the exact keywords that your competitors are actually getting from the backlinks that are helping them rank. So you can check out that and replicate from there. What's your take on Ahrefs, Mike?
I love Ahrefs. It's a great tool. I actually really appreciate their site redesign. It looks really beautiful. I appreciate them like deviating from what everyone else is doing as far as the design. But I've always appreciated their tool set because they update the most often. They've got probably the richest data set at this point.
Absolutely.
And I pull from all the different link indices because of the fact that they all cover like a different subsegment of the web. But I always find that Ahrefs has the most data. So if there's only one to choose, I'd probably go with them.
No, there's the endorsement for the year right there.
Yeah, they don't even pay me.
I'm saying. No, you're right. And they're the most active. I mean, whenever we're doing any type of disavow or any type of link analysis, we're pulling from Ahrefs first because they've got the freshest links, right? And the deepest well of links. And I'm not going to besmirch any of the other platforms because we're pulling. I don't particularly like the disavow process on Ahrefs, but I mean, all things considered, just being able to have that level of active data coming in on a daily basis, man, it tells you a lot about honestly, it tells you about how successful you are in your own marketing, because as soon as you start plugging away and getting higher and higher rankings in certain clusters of keywords, all of a sudden that's the spam links start to form around the hull of the ship, right? I mean, it's a kind of a odd signal of performance, all things considered. Anyway, we certainly appreciate them continued as a sponsor, and we certainly recommend everybody go check out ahrefs.com, and they've got a $7 7-day trial period that you can see the entire tool set. Nothing's crippled, and you'll be able to swim in some great data. I tell you, you can lose yourself in that platform. You really can.
So much data.
Okay, I'm lost on this one, Mike.
Okay.
This last article is from Impact by John Becker. Google launches Keen. All right, a new app to help you spend more time doing what you love. A new Google app called Keen, which sounds like a blend of Facebook groups and Pinterest, purports to make it easier for you to learn more about what you love and connect with others who share the same passions. So. There is a video on this particular article, but it had no verbiage whatsoever. It was just a continued soundtrack. But here's the deal: Keen is a product of Google's Area 120, the search engine startup lab division, and it launched last week. At this point, Keen is only a web and Android-based app, and there's been no mention of the iOS version, so it's pretty easy to log on. So users create a Keen, which could be about anything: learning to juggle, boat, travel, or still life painting. Then curate content related to the topic. These Keens can be shared with others too. Is this a reboot of Google Plus in some weird twisted reality?
Yeah, it feels like Google Plus circles again.
Yes.
And I like the idea of curation and such, but it's never been something that's grabbed me personally. I like it as far as something that you can learn from users, and users, of course, can share what they love and so on.
Sure.
But I can't imagine myself personally ever using this thing. So, we've got a couple of people that are taking a look at it here at iPull Rank, but other than that, I don't really have too many thoughts on it yet.
It almost sounds like this has been built quickly for meeting the masses because they're spending so much time at home and online. It's almost like, hey, let's give them something to twiddle their thumbs about while they're not at home and they're not driving, they're not commuting. I don't know. I mean, you'd hate to just think that. But
I can't imagine this being something that lasts. You know how like so many things have come and gone, like Google Plus, for instance. This is one of those things that doesn't feel like it has legs to me, and so I can't see myself spending too much time with it until like someone identifies a use case, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, But I just don't like just use Pinterest.
Yeah. But I won't throw this one at you because we didn't read it together. But Roger Monti just posted today an article regarding does Google actually track sentiment and as a SEO signal. Now, if we have Keen and all of a sudden you've got some Keen lean-ins from a curation content, all of a sudden now you're having some Keen referral traffic and would that be a potential SEO signal? Oh my gosh.
Potentially, but it's got to reach a critical mass first.
Yeah.
Like, anybody using Keen yet?
No, nope. Absolutely not. But you know what? We can try it out. You know what, Mike? You set it up. I'll set it up, and we'll try it out together.
Compare notes. Sounds good.
Compare notes.
Does anybody remember the game Commander Keen?
Yes. Oh my gosh. All right, for all the young players at home, Commander Keen. Oh my gosh, that
was the best.
It was. Thanks a lot, man. Now you got that visual in my head. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, it was a fantastic.
There's got to be some YouTube like walkthroughs somewhere. I mean, it's probably 8-bit. I'm sure
it's like an 8-bit game from like 1993.
Yeah, probably.
And it was so beautifully rendered at the time. Oh my gosh. All right.
I'm not saying anything because, people think I'm younger than I am. And if I start agreeing with you,
Remember Darkstar? Darkstar was an awesome video game. It was.
You remember Darkstar?
Tempest. Come on.
I remember the movie Darkstar. That was terrible. but in a good way.
Okay, we're completely degrading this podcast, not unlike the WP Engine servers just recently.
Ooh.
Oh, too soon. Too soon. All right. All right, so we got another update for you. This is June 29th, 2020, and we do a regular Google update snapshot whenever we see some things coming down the pike. June 25th, there was a spike in volatility, and we try to do this as much as possible when we see things coming down. But if you want to have a check out, go check out these tools because the volatility meters on all these platforms are very, very spot on. So SEM Rush, we can see right out of the gate here, that was June 23rd when they have a particular spike. That was an 8.7 on the Richter scale for SEM Rush. And I think that's actually, if not higher than or just at the same height as the May 5th core algorithm update last month. So hold on to your hats. We're seeing a couple things changing on some of the sites that we're looking at from in response to that. So there's truly algo change happening there. And on Moz, we had a 96-degree weather pattern on the 22nd of June. So there's an entire week, entire build up to the weekend that had a number of changes here. And over on Cognitive, you can see that the weekend also kind of played up pretty nasty as well. A volatility of 86 on their sensor, and Rank Ranger had a couple spikes actually earlier than that on the 20th of June as well as the 23rd. Some high challenges here from a visibility index standpoint. But I did want to unpack one more thing with Rank Ranger, something I picked up on. Their local pack percentage of queries where local is actually showing jumped up 7 percentage points from around 40% of searches showing up with local pack visibility, another 7%. That's pretty high with these search features that you see something jump that high, especially during an algo change.
Yeah, but that one makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
With more and more cities going on lockdown and so on, like more queries are turning into local queries that were not before.
Absolutely.
So that one makes a lot more sense to me. One thing I wanted to say is that cognitive SEO is a very what's the word? Underappreciated
yes, sir.
Tool. I love their link visualizations. I love their unnatural linking classifier. We use that tool pretty heavily.
Cognitive's great, and I think we rely upon them as the de facto spam analysis tool when it's looking at all the different factors, as opposed to some others that have a little smaller set of criteria. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think a lot of what we may be seeing in these dramatic changes are again reflecting what's happening in the United States, because of the fact that, like I said, some queries are switching. It's not just like an algorithm update that's like coming for you.
Right.
It's one that actually makes sense. So, I've stopped really paying as much attention to the algorithm updates as I did before, largely because, what do you do with that information right now, right?
Right.
Like, are you going to go in and dramatically change your site overnight? Probably not.
Nope.
And I generally recommend to people, take a step back, wait at least a couple weeks to see if this actually does continue to affect you. Because when, they roll out algorithm updates, they may change a piece of it, or they may change several pieces of it. So if you're directly reactive as soon as it happens, you may have been like a false positive in this test that is now a actual positive because of something that you changed. So I definitely would say, keep an eye on it, but don't do anything for at least 2 weeks.
Don't react in the throes of it, because we've also seen that core algorithm update rollouts will go maybe 2 weeks actually through all the different data centers to get something that finally settles down. So you're absolutely right, is don't act rash ever. When an algorithm change affects you negatively.
The thing is that people think of like Google as this as though the company is different from any other software company. Like they roll things out in stages, just like any other software company. And if something doesn't work the way that they expect, they roll a piece of it back. So you gotta assume that you are just an input for a software program, and they're going through the same processes that everybody else is.
We're all plugged into the matrix. That's what you're telling us. We are all search query batteries for Google. That's what you're saying. Yep. See?
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's the point, is that they're rolling this stuff out, and the world's changing as well. And we're going to talk about that in the interview here. But so many things are changing, and Google's also being responsive to those changes. This is not a siloed environment. So back to the rank change, local pack is changing because Google is matching its users' needs right there. So you got to pay attention. Things shift, and the world shifts on a regular basis, and we got to be able to navigate that. So it's not a rash, explosive reaction that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to be able to read what's in front of you after everything settles down, and then understand and interpret what you're not serving to Google that others are after a particular algorithm rollout, right?
Yeah, I think that, it's actually quite impressive if this isn't the result of any algorithm update. It's just how the system itself, reacts to the user. If that is the case, it is way more impressive than I thought it was before.
Yeah.
There is a specific patent about how user behavior, like clicks in a certain time frame, will adjust the ranking. And so this patent could reflect that, like that patent could be the reason why this stuff is happening, but it could also just be an update. Either way, I think it's really fascinating to watch and see how well it reacts to user behavior.
Got it. All right, so your house isn't on fire, although Mike's is. But you do actually need to pay attention to, as soon as you hear about a change in volatility, look at your sites. Pay attention to your baselines, what you've been looking at, what actually has changed, and not just the overall rank averages, but also look at your individual pages, because there's the telltale sign. If a couple of those pages are dropping off dramatically, look at those and what those represent, and do they represent a whole kind of fingerprint of your website, or are those anomalous type of pages that should have been gone to begin with, right?
Yeah, and spend a lot of time looking at your log files as well, especially when these things happen. What you tend to see is a spike in activity around certain pages in your log files. That's going to give you a sense of like where you need to attack first. But more often than not, what I see is that people use algorithm changes to push through the things that they were already trying to do anyway. That's why I'm saying that it doesn't like dramatically change your strategy up. It's largely that you're like, oh, I already knew to do these things, but Google made a change, so now let me get the buy-in from the rest of the organization to actually make this happen. So go for it.
So it's validation, right?
Yeah.
It's cover fire to get some SEO changes in place.
Cover fire, really?
Yeah. Sorry. It comes naturally, man. It comes naturally. All right. So we certainly appreciate that take. And what is your favorite log analysis program, by the way?
I love using Spotify for log analysis just because it has, the crawl data right there next to it. It's just so easy to parse for the specific insights that you want.
Yep.
But other than that, I usually just like parse them myself, throw them into a database, and then line it up with any data that we have.
There you go. All right. So that's pretty good news podcast for this week over at The Edge. Be sure to check out the full interview with Michael King linked to this podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel to get updated when we go live and when we premiere different videos. From all of us over at The Edge, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.